Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shashi, with you all on Women Dialogues to create more voice for women and by women. And today's our guest is connecting from United Kingdom, as we have many other beautiful speakers earlier. So today's our guest is Dr. Ruth Miller. She is a senior pharmacist, coach, consultant, speaker, and founder of the Swan Doctor Coaching and Consulting Company. As you can hear, she has done lots of work in coaching consulting by helping the professionals and entrepreneurs. She has lots of stories to share with us, to inspire, to motivate us, how she is making this impact by her work, by her skills in the society, in other people's life. We will hear from her, we will learn from her, and with this note, we would like to welcome our today's speaker, Dr. Ruth, on the Women Dialogues. So, welcome, Dr. Ruth. We are so glad that you are joining us today.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure. Delighted to be with you.
So, as Dr. Ruth, we were finding your such a inspiring, beautiful work, which you are transforming people life by your work, which is always impactful. So, before starting about your career journey, would you like to bring about your life journey, how where you grew up, what kind of things you received in your childhood, what kind of challenges you found that they helped you to shape you in your current life, in your future strategies, in your work, and all the way you are today.
Yeah, well, I was born in the 70s in Northern Ireland. So that was a time of conflict in my country, a beautiful place, but going through very challenging times. And I suppose I was born at a time the conflict had already started, the Troubles, as we call it. And so I knew nothing else growing up. I was an only child to very loving parents. I was born very late in their marriage. They didn't think they could have children, and then I appeared. So for me, although I was born into a country that had troubles, my own world was very loving and peaceful. And my parents brought me up to be tolerant of others, to be accepting of others, and to help others as much as I can. People often say to me, Ruth, I don't think you do something unless you know it's going to matter or help. And I think that's been very true, but I think that's come from my upbringing. So certainly the support of my parents, they were very inspiring to me. They were very hardworking. And very supportive of myself and my career. So I was very, very fortunate. And where I grew up, it's a beautiful place. And although there was a lot of conflict and trouble around me, I knew nothing but the beauty of the country, and I love it here. I've always lived here, and happy to be here. So though I work with people from around the world and enjoy traveling, I always love to come back home.
So currently you are in UK or in Ireland, if may I ask? Maybe I introduce you.
Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom.
Right. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So Ruth is from Northern Ireland, and yeah, we were hearing about her, where she grew up, how she grew up, what kind of circumstances she found in her childhood, but how those circumstances, those situations helped her and maybe shaped her in her further career journey or in her life. So Ruth, when we are talking about all these challenges which you described, which you mentioned very beautifully, how this kind of environment and surrounding made you so helpful person, as to be so surrounded by the positive people and to be on the ground. Uh, Moving to your career line where you are now transforming, you are coaching other people, how you find these qualities which you developed in such young age or very early age helping other people?
Yeah, well, I suppose I had, as I say, grew up in a very stable environment, a very loving environment. So it was only as an adult, I suppose, I then started to encounter more challenges. I was through my PhD, so educated to that level, and went into an academic career. And the first challenge that hit, so I was based in Queen's University in Belfast in the School of Pharmacy, and that was the career I wanted. I was taking the academic path.
Right.
So I was very, very focused. I've always been very focused, and I was focused on that. And then my health gave up. So I don't know what triggered it, but I had chronic fatigue syndrome, or other people call it ME. And that caused me to leave that career. I fought and tried everything, but unfortunately it was very debilitating for about 4 years. So during that time, so I had to give up that career, and that threw me off my path because I didn't know what I was going to do instead. But I found other things to do. I literally started businesses from my own bedroom because I still had an active mind. My body was letting me down, but my mind was so busy.
Yeah.
So I started a small advertising magazine business, literally from my bedroom, and just did what I could when I could. I also started a small wedding favor business, so I was making chocolate bars. I did all sorts of things just to keep contributing to the world, because I couldn't not do that. I eventually then was well enough. I took over a coffee shop. I went into property development, and I went back into pharmacy again and worked with GPs on the self-employed basis. So at that stage, my life had completely changed path. I was running multiple businesses and still managing my health. But then, unfortunately, we had in 2008 the global financial crisis, and that impacted on everything I was doing financially. And my marriage also ended. So I returned back home. I had a 2-year-old daughter at that point. I returned back home, and I found myself as a single parent, and having to start again. I got a new role in hospital pharmacy and research and clinical trials, and just slowly had to build my life back together again. And it's through all those things that all that career, all that experience in business. And for a while, I went through a period of being very ashamed of what had happened and disappointed, because I'd always been such a high achiever. I'd known nothing but a stable family unit and love, and this was not in the plan. But as time went on, I realized there had to be some good that came from it. So I started blogging to begin with. I didn't start coaching, I started blogging. I had worked with coaches on and off, and I started working with a mindset coach to help me with that shame and regret that I was feeling about everything. I was still doing really, really well. And in my pharmacy career, the services I was developing and the research I was involved in was becoming award winning on a national level. We were making huge impact on people, working with a fabulous team. I work with amazing women. My own line manager, I have a female boss. She's incredible. She's very inspiring. She's a visionary. The people I work with are like that. We just inspire each other. But I was feeling very lost about what had happened in my personal life. And through that, then he helped me realize that my calling was the coaching. So the coaching then began. So I started writing about what happened. I started speaking on stage about what happened and how I could help others. And I realized it was making such a huge impact. And I started to realize that the challenges you experience in life are not just your own learning, but they can become your gift to other people. To help others, because you understand and empathize in a way but you also have come through it, so you know how to get them through it. So the coaching started, and I find then that my business skills kept emerging. People in business were coming to me for coaching. So it has evolved in that what I do is a very holistic coaching. I help people with their business. I help very much with their goal setting and their action planning, but I also help with seeing what they need personally to develop. And if they have challenges in their lives or things in the past that are holding them back, I'll help them work through that so that they can move forward, because your past shouldn't dictate the future. It's where you're at right now. So that's the overarching thing, is all those ups and downs of life, and the roller coaster of life brought me to here, and means that I can really help bring a transformation to others.
Right. So, Ruth, you explained in a very, in a realistic way, when as a human, what we experience, what we plan, but same time how things can be, those experiences which some moments, some particular time we really feel frustrated, we really feel down,
Yeah.
but uh, getting over from those moments, those situations, those circumstances give us again a new learning, new courage, as you shared. And then same time you understood that these kind of learning can be helpful for other people by sharing, as a coach, as a mentor. You did very beautifully, and you are doing very beautifully. But when we are talking about sharing with others, uh, how you find it impacted their life? Do you have, maybe you must be having a lot of work or stories to share, from corporates to individual, how you define or how you can bring those stories to share with us?
In the sense of sharing other people's, the impact on
Yeah.
other people.
Yes.
Yeah. I have had clients go through very similar experiences, maybe a loss of a business, a failure, a marriage failure, some that maybe gone through abuse, and they present to you feeling that they are not worthy, and
Mm.
they don't deserve what they want, and they don't, I think something that you hear a lot is I'm not good enough, or I'm not confident enough. So a lot of my clients that I work with, it's about working on that aspect of them. So it's not just I want to have a business and I want to improve my income and have more abundance, because there's no point in having that abundance if you're not happy within yourself and your life is not what you want it to be. So I have, one particular client that did lose everything after a very successful business, who's now, having worked with me, is now also working with other women and tapping into their own sort of divine power and abilities. And she's worked through the similar feelings and the disappointment and the frustration and guilt and all those sort of negative emotions, and she's worked her way through, so she understands. So I brought her to a very good place with that. Other clients, there's women are sometimes scared to scale. They're scared to want too much. And they're trying to find the balance of working from home, running a business, having young children, and doing well. And there's sometimes a culture, and I find it here in particular, that people are like, "You're not satisfied with what you got? Is that not enough?" And I've had that said to me as well, like, "We've got this fabulous career in pharmacy. Is that not enough for you?" And I'm like, well, no, it's not, because I have all this other side to me I need to share.
Yeah.
I need to
Yeah.
have this business, and I need to help others in the way that has been brought to me. I didn't plan this. This happened. So my story brought me to here, but particularly through the pandemic, I've had clients, that was really struggling, working from home, running the business from home. The children were home, they weren't in school, and they couldn't get away from anything. The business and work was always there, and that's been quite a challenging time. And women are very hard on themselves. They expect to excel at every aspect, and at some point you have to congratulate yourself with just getting through. We're getting through this. Hopefully we're emerging from it. And a lot of my clients, just be about celebrating each little achievement and actually just getting through, and that everybody's physically and mentally still well at the end of it, because this has been such a challenging time. So that's, those outcomes have been important for clients during the pandemic, is
Yeah.
to accept how well you've actually done.
Yeah.
So the other aspect is when their businesses start to scale, it's almost like, oh no, that's not for me. That's too big. You know, I'm not meant to have that. And I think women,
Mhm.
men don't do that as much. I don't think. I think men go for it, and you know, whereas women are maybe scared, oh, I can't be seen to show off, or want that, or I don't deserve that. So it's working through that glass ceiling that they always create for themselves and breaking through that and really going for what they deserve. So there's a mindset, I think, as their businesses grow, and they hit a ceiling every so often that we have to work through, and that sort of, as I say, the expansion, and it's a little bit scary, but it's good, and they start to see the good they can do.
So Ruth, when we are talking about all these putting limitation on self, seeing yourself that you can't do that, whereas you yourself was always having a lot of zeal inside that I need to do that. Even you share that you got at some moment chronic fatigue syndrome and you was not able to do that. But whereas your mind was active, you it want to do something and you was keep creating some your business, some kind of while even being on the position or on the bed for giving your body that rest which is required. We experience in women many times such kind of thing because as you said they are always overloaded with a lot of responsibilities, work. They have to perform in their home life, they have to perform in their children life, and all these tasks they do so beautifully, but same time they feel like we have to perform in our career line as well, and which led them many times the similar kind of chronic fatigue syndrome. And
Yeah.
some give up, some take actions like you. Would you like to share some thoughts or maybe plan of action how they can do that if they feel such kind of things and they are experiencing such kind of
I think
in their body?
yeah, what I've seen with some women, particularly during the pandemic, because the stresses were even greater,
Yes. Yeah.
there was no getting away. There was no way of releasing.
Right.
Certainly on the verge of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a number of recommendations for people. I think everybody does need someone that they talk to, and have as a support network. Now, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily have to be a partner. It could be a coach or a mentor or somebody, you know, in your network that you feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
talking to. I'm very, you know, I'm encourage people to have a strong network. Well, it is your business peers. It's good to have a network with your business peers because they understand. You know, I've been in business masterminds and formed relationships with women in there, and we have stayed a part of that group, and we still, even after the mastermind has officially ended, we've stayed supportive of each other. And there's business decisions we help each other with, but there's life decisions, you know, some of us have elderly parents, including myself, and decisions around their health and caring for them. So it's good to have a network. So that's one thing I would say is, and if you feel the overwhelm, it's really important that you take a break. It's okay to take a break. I have clients that it's 7 days a week. They won't stop. They won't let it go. You have to build in the self-care time. You have to build in, my mind is very reactive. I have to divert it in different ways. So some of it might be just reading for a while. Definitely the chronic fatigue means that sometimes it's just, I'm completely floored. And I have to just give into it. And it's the same kind of thing, the signs of burnout. And I've recognized it more in my clients lately. And I've had to say, you've got to take the break and you've got to talk to somebody, you've got to acknowledge it. So find that one person, you know, and sometimes it's me as their mentor and coach. And it's up to me then to say, the action plan's being put aside. What we're putting in the action plan this week is your break. You've got to
Mm-hmm.
take time and take time with the children or take time for yourself. Women don't take time for themselves. So
Yes.
build in, you know, even if it's 30 minutes 3 times a week, and do something that gives you joy, to try and prevent that burnout. People like me who are so active, we have to build in that time. We have to be disciplined about it. And I see it in so many women that I work with, and they avoid it. You know, I talk about ideal days and ideal weeks, and you know, they can't quite believe that maybe there's a possibility we could get the business running from 9 to 3, 4 days a week, and the rest of the time could be yours. That's where I want to get them to. And they can't quite accept that. It's like, no, I need to be doing 12, 14-hour days. That's not healthy and not good. And we don't perform well when we do that anyway. So, you know, that would be another thing I would say. So be very self-aware. And if you need medical intervention, you need medical advice, you know, if your mental health is deteriorating, please do. I think there's a tendency at the moment, because we're aware that healthcare professionals, and I'm aware than most, are under so much pressure because of the pandemic. They're still there. And if you are feeling the pressures and you get to that stage, it's good to get the acknowledgement and speak to a medical professional.
So Ruth, here you brought really very important point about mental health, which we always try to maybe neglect or try to avoid. But sometimes a part of coaching, a part of counseling, a part of therapies, as you have background of a senior pharmacist, you know, these medical and these a clinical intervention is so important to get regulated and get the right way to get treated. How what way you feel how these all these imbalances in mental health, or these as a pharmacist, those bringing those chemicals by taking help of maybe medicine or something can be helpful, and what stage they should feel like, okay, now this is something I need to get intervention through the clinical side, because I'm finding these all are not not getting effective on my life. Because many times we keep having on denial mode, and when we are having on keep denial, it gets worse and worse. So what is the right time when we as a person who is experiencing this need to feel like I need to get intervention through the clinical side now?
Yeah, it's an interesting area, and as a coach, you know, when I'm starting out coaching with people, people confuse coaching with counselling and mental health therapy.
Yes.
That's something I'm very clear about at the start, and because I'm also a healthcare professional, I'm even more clear about it. And I do have it with my clients. If there's any deterioration in mental health, I will refer them to the appropriate person. Whilst I'm a senior pharmacist, I don't specialise in mental health. I specialise in coaching. I have a knowledge of the medications, as you say,
Yes,
and the
exactly. Yeah.
So, I mean, the early, mild to moderate depression, well, mild depression can sometimes be helped through CBT, and that is available. We have the National Health Service here, and there is a small availability of CBT to some patients who are mildly affected, and that is the preference, to try and find the coping mechanisms without medication. So that would be the first line. There are some private CBT practitioners as well, if somebody wants to see someone through that route. Important to also see someone who's well qualified in it, and you know it is regulated and they get appropriate help. At the point of, I would say at the point where you feel you need to speak to a medical professional is a point of considering, well, you do need the chemical intervention, the pharmacological intervention or not. I'm not the hugest fan, because I think you can do a lot of non-pharmacological interventions to try and help people. Sometimes the type of mental health problems you see is maybe situational, so it's been caused by an event in your life, so a relationship breakup, a job loss, a financial strain, something has, you know, and sometimes then it's a postnatal, which is a different area again, and that needs specialist support to get you through that. I think the biggest difficulty with it, Shashi, is the stigma around it, actually admitting, because people will let it go too far. I think people can often around you see the difference in you, but you won't admit it. So your sleep may be affected, you know, your mood's obviously affected, you know, you might be finding your productivity is dropping, you're maybe not finding the joy in your work that you used to find, you're not coping with the children, you know, they're getting to you rather than bringing you pleasure. When you reach that kind of point, it's that point that you need to say to somebody, and you can say to your, as I say, to your network, somebody you feel safe and comfortable with, but it's also good to then seek medical professional intervention. And so try non-pharmacological if it's a mild or a situational, because long term, I think people don't want to be on these medications particularly. So that would be kind of my approach, but it's overcoming the stigma and the
Yeah.
point of admitting I need help. People find that so hard and see it as a
Yeah.
weakness. And our
Yeah.
challenge is to get people to see that it's not, because it's an illness like any other. So people, you talk about the chemical imbalance with your serotonin, etc. It's the same with diabetes. The body's
Yes.
not, the sugars.
Right.
So I try to say to people, it's like having a long-term illness like diabetes. Except we can treat it and we can have interventions and we can get you through this and support you. I think our biggest challenge is that, and our as well now post-pandemic, I do fear what I refer to as a mental health tsunami. There seems to be a strong link between COVID itself causing
Yes.
depression and anxiety. There seems to be evidence coming through anxiety and depression associated with illness. Then there's long COVID, and that's a bit like, it seems to be akin to what I've been through with the chronic fatigue syndrome. And the symptoms are the same. Now, the treatment's going to be the same, and that's a controversial area as well. And then there's also just a lot of people have been affected, perhaps financially. Impact on business. A lot of businesses having to close, particularly retail.
So Ruth, when you are talking about this stigma, and we are very well aware that when we are talking about mental health, it's still there are, even when we develop so much, but there's always some stigma is associated with that. But during this COVID time, in general, population has started feeling some sort of these kind of things, and they started talking about it. They started posting more about it in social media. They started working on it. Do you find some kind of awareness and some kind of understanding we have created because we got into such kind of pandemic, but then same time we have created like, okay, this is something we need to work on and we have to work on, and rather than finding as a stigma or rather than avoiding such kind of.
I think, there is definitely an increased awareness of what's actually happening because of the pandemic as well. I think there has been a shift in people being able to talk about their mental health. More sort of high-profile people over the years have started to talk about their struggles with their own mental health. I think as well, Shashi, the pandemic is the big reset. We've hit the reset button and people are looking at their lives, and they maybe are being more empathetic and compassionate to each other. We've had to come through this together. So, but where my concern lies is sort of a long-term chronic and gross underfunding and awareness of supporting mental health. And if we are about to have people with more serious problems with their mental health, so we are at that intervention stage where the non-pharmacological is not enough, we need to intervene. The fear is we're going to have more people in that position, and how can we, certainly in the UK, and I have great concerns about the actual resourcing of supporting people through this. And I think then what we're going to have to do is actually use our community resources more, and the voluntary sector that we have, for example, in this country, there's some fantastic groups and support groups out there to help people through and to give them purpose in their life again. And I think there's going to be a leaning on that sector and what we call the third sector here in the UK to support as well. Then of course they're funded through non-profit and charity status. So there's going to be a greater dependency on that. So it's going to be interesting how it evolves as we go through. It worries me, but I think if we talk openly about it, hopefully we can remove. I think the stigma has lessened over the years. People are talking more openly. You see more people, for example, on social media will talk about their stories and their experience. Women will talk about postnatal depression. Women people will talk about crises in their lives and when they really were at a very low time. So we just need to build on that more, and as a community be aware of everybody around us, and know that everybody's going through something.
So, Ruth, when we have discussed so much in detail about your work, your expertise as a pharmacist, as a coach, as a mentor, you work in a lot of these diverse areas, and you each time you impact people life by your work. Uh, what kind of basic thing, or maybe which you feel by working all these, especially in women, you feel like something is missing? We discussed about glass ceiling, but apart of that, what you feel basic thing is missing in them that we need to work on that?
It goes back to what I said earlier, Shashi, about women feeling enough and feeling
Mhm.
deserving. Um,
Right.
there's so many people and clients and people I meet in life who are extraordinary, and they don't realize that they are multi-talented. You women in particular, as we've already talked about, look at all that we do. You know, we run the home, we're a key member of the family, we're the nurturer, and now often we're the financial provider as well as the nurturer. We have the career as well as that whole thing going on. And it fascinates me that I meet people who are balancing all this and don't feel enough. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel deserving enough. And that's the bit, and I don't know whether that is just the evolution of women still, you know, we've made huge progress in decades rather than centuries. So is it an evolution of the point that women will feel enough and feel enough to talk about, you know, inequalities in salaries, for example,
Right.
inequalities in opportunities, inequalities in education. United Kingdom is doing better, could do better again. Other countries are very far behind where there's not the same opportunities for young girls, and it's to create that, you know, you're talking about global. If we're talking global, we know there's huge inequalities for young girls and women, and to
Yes,
see that moving
that's
forward.
so true. So when we are hearing all these kind of things, we are still lacking, or we are still have to work on to put in the place in order, by giving them that sense of worthness, that sense of all these kind of things. Uh, how you define your work style, or as a, maybe I'll say your leadership style, which can help women or other people who are looking for such kind of support.
My leadership style actually is very much trying to demonstrate, but doing the very best that I can do, is to show that you can do it. You can, no matter what happens, is you can get there. You know, I suppose, I don't know, I lead by example is a good use of words, but I do try to show people I'm very open with my life and my experiences, maybe more open than most. And by doing that, then I try to show people that you can work through. You've hit this brick wall, you've hit this challenging time, you can work through it and you can get to the other side, and there'll be a wonderful life on the other side of it again. As my own mum says, you know, she says there's a long road that doesn't have a turning, and when you're in the middle of a difficult time, it can be about, yeah, but when's it going to turn, you know? But you will get to the other side. The other thing I do as well is I'm supportive of women and people that I mentor. I do work with some men as well, but it's mainly women. Is identifying their strengths and their values, and playing to their strengths, and knowing their strengths. So I will help in a leadership way. I help people identify their strengths, and I encourage them to push that a little bit harder, step outside their comfort zone. That's very sort of cliche, but there is a need to get out of the comfortable place that we can sometimes find ourselves in a career. You can get so far and go, this is fine here, and then I can see a bit of talent and go, no, you could do more, and encourage people to try things, to meet influencing people, you know, to network, to put themselves out there. And yes, it's uncomfortable. But I really, you know, my own coach says to me, Ruth, you hold people's hands while you're coaching them. I do. I walk with them. So they probably see me as a leader, but I walk with them while I'm leading.
Right. So, Ruth, as a leader who is working with the clients, or with the person who is looking for support, you are creating impact, you are changing their life, you are transforming. How you find a platform or talk show like this, a women dialogue, is creating impact or is important and needed uh, as well.
It's very important. I think what you're doing is fantastic, Sashin, to bring women from across the globe to talk about this and all our different perspectives and experiences. You know, I think it's so important to understand how someone, when they're growing up, how that forms them and shapes them. And you start off with that with your interviews, asking people, you know, and they're not used to that because they sometimes just expect to focus in on their business or what they're doing right now. And actually that whole journey is what you brought to that conversation with you today. And to spread the message, you know, we all, I think if a woman shows openness and a little bit of vulnerability, which is something I try to bring in, which, you know, people are uncomfortable with that and like, why show that? But that gives them, other women, the opportunity to then say, yeah, me too. I went through that, but I got here, or it's okay that that happened, and it's okay that I want this, or I want to achieve that. It's okay to say these things and be vulnerable with it. So I think you know, the dialogue and women talking to each other and supporting each other about what's possible, what can be achieved is so important. So it's a fabulous initiative that you have.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts and how you are finding this is important work and how we can create impact by sharing our voice, our stories, and our work with others. So yes, we are very glad to hear. We are very glad to receive such feedback like as you shared, because each time each speaker is creating impact not only the professionally but in many other ways to those silent voices who are listening and watching us. Each time when they come and see and watch, they are changing the life, the speakers are changing life of those listeners. So Ruth, you shared your wisdom, you shared all those things. It was fantastic. It was really great insight to talk about mental health, to talk about as a clinical intervention, to talk about coaching importance. Last not least, what one message would you like to give to our all audience?
Um, I I like I have a quote and a mantra that's not mine. It belongs to Sir Winston Churchill. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It's the courage to continue that counts. And I've stolen that from him, but that is where I really come from. It's the courage to keep going that counts.
So as our audience and all listeners, you can hear from our Ruth that what takes us to further step of growth, to development, and to lead a successful life is courage. And I believe with the same message you will take in your life, you will develop yourself better than today, and you will find your own peace, own growth in your own way by maybe hearing and getting inspired by our all speaker like Ruth and many others. With this note, I would like to just say take care, stay safe, stay connected, and thank you. And yes, don't forget, I'm going to put the details about Ruth in the description as well. So check out those details. If you feel you need some sort of help, get connected with Ruth and get your solution done, whatever solution you require to get it done. And at the same time, don't forget to share and subscribe. Your each share and subscribe is important for our mission to share these stories, to inspire and to motivate our women and all others to create a better society and better world. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.